What's good, Southeast Michigan podcast? Daniel back with you for episode 79. Been quite some time since we spoke last. Last time we did a podcast, we were watching the ReliaQuest Bowl together. We watched the first quarter, and we finished up with the final 5 minutes of that game, and seeing Michigan cap off an 8-5 season with a win over the Crimson Tide. So able to beat that program technically twice in 1 year. Caleb Downs lost twice in 1 year, so I guess all is good in the world at that point. And a lot has happened since then, obviously, with the college football playoff and everything like that. But thanks for tuning back in. The Southeast Michigan podcast is free and available wherever you watch or listen. Up on YouTube, click the bell for notifications and subscribe. And if you could please leave a show review on the platform of your choice. The playoff. A lot of it went different. I thought Boise State was going to give Penn State more of a run. That wasn't the case. Ohio State seemingly rejuvenated after getting beat by Michigan at home. And tonight, January 20th, Notre Dame, Ohio State for the Natty. And could it be a Michigan fan's worst nightmare? It probably would be Michigan State involved with Ohio State, but Notre Dame is Michigan's rival. With not playing every single year, that one is just the temperature in the room at the time when those two get together for that rivalry feel. I guess I was never a fan. I'm still not a fan of Brian Kelly by any means. I think the guy is a complete douchebag, and I don't like his coaching style at all. And so with him not being at Notre Dame, I don't really have a hatred for them at the moment. Marcus Freeman is a very likable coach. They've struggled against Northern Illinois Marshall over the last few years, losing. So it's been a little bit different of a feel. But tonight, I'm not saying I would root for Notre Dame, but I would sure rather them win than Ohio State. And if you've been a listener of my commentary on this podcast or at the old one at Real Talk with Jeff, I am all for watching your rivals lose in the conference. So I'm not one that's like, oh, it's good for the Big Ten as a whole if Ohio State wins. No, I don't look at that way. I want Ohio State to lose every single game, even if it's against Alabama, even if it's Georgia. So tonight, it's all Fighting Irish for me. Now, that's not to say that it's going to dictate where my money goes, but when I bet tonight, it'll be with a realistic mindset, not only Notre Dame because I want Ohio State to lose, but you get the point. But so Michigan football, we're gonna recap 2024 real quick and kind of nip it in the bud and look forward to 2025. The transfer portal is still open. The commit watch of Ty Haywood is on full alert. He's visiting Michigan this weekend, or was visiting Michigan this weekend. Michigan got a couple more transfer portal guys since we last spoke. Some guys have found homes elsewhere. So let's get into it. But real quick too, Michigan hockey and basketball. That's of course in full swing. We will get to those. We will get to those in the coming days, weeks, months, because that's what we're gonna have to talk about. And basketball, they were on a run. They were on a hot streak. They escaped Northwestern in overtime after losing in overtime to Minnesota. So yeah, that's going to be a mouthful in itself. And the Michigan hockey team just maybe a slight tier below last year. Again, another type of team that just splits games, finds stupid ways to lose. But again, we'll get to that in the coming episodes. All right, so let's get into Michigan, Michigan football. 8-5 on the season, right? I predicted Michigan to go 10-2, 7-2 overall in the beginning, in the preseason. Some news, or not news, but noteworthy things of 2024. Michigan lost to Indiana and Illinois in the same season for the first time since 1958. Michigan scored 30 or more points only twice this season, 30 versus Fresno and 50 versus Northwestern. Michigan didn't have a 1,000-yard rusher. Khalil Mullings finished with just 948 yards. Michigan's top wide receiver in yardage was Tyler Morris, who finished with 248. The lowest output by a Michigan wide receiver in quite some time. I don't know exactly, what kind of ballpark that's in terms of Michigan history in like modern day times, not back when they were leather helmets, but 2009 Roy Roundtree finished with 434. Martavius Odoms had 443 the year prior in 2008. Michigan defense led the nation in scoring for 2023, only allowing 10.5 points per game. In 2024, they were still in the top 20, allowing 19.9 per game, so 20 points. So still pretty solid there in terms of the defense, losing as all the guys that they did. And I think next year there's potential to be definitely better than 2024. I think 2025 defense has the capability. I mean, it's January, barely the beginning of the season or beginning of the calendar year, but yeah, some things we learned and questioned over the season watching this team follow up a national championship season. Despite all the players and coaches who moved on, this team was still able to win all its rivalry games and beat Alabama in a bowl. So, yes, some things we learned and questioned. What would have been the season if Jack Tuttle stayed healthy and started the season? Gave him a spark in the Washington game, but played horrendously at Illinois with a bye week to prepare. So that Jack Tuttle comes in for that Husky game on the road, hostile environment. They find some footing. They move down. They start scoring, and of course, coughed up the soap in a bad time. But you left that game with a sense of hope that, like, all right, go to the bye week, get him some more prep. And with his experience, him being in college for as long as he was at that time, Illinois is a very winnable game on the road. Of course, they did not look that way when they did get to Illinois. What would have been the season if Davis Warren played the whole time and not been benched at all after the poor performances, notably with 3 interceptions versus Arkansas State alone? Losses that should have been avoided were Illinois and Indiana, 10-5 season, if so. And if it's a 10-5 season, I mean, I'm not saying you're on cloud 9, but you feel even better than where you're at now. So, my personal feelings and mood from start to finish. So, I'll go from the beginning, preseason, all the way to the finish. As mentioned, the prediction was a 10-2 regular season. Even with the quarterback room the way it was, I thought, the defense would have been able to play complementary football hand in hand. I believe the offensive line, despite a new cast, would have gelled quickly or gelled a little bit more, I guess, better. Josh Preeb coming in, came in from Northwestern, had experience. And then you also had Miles Hinton on the left side. Now, Miles Hinton has been kind of, I won't say plug and play, but has been in and out of the lineup previous to the season. And so, I mean, with those two guys, even before their Michigan careers began, they had snaps under their belt. Question marks were, Donovan Edwards' usage and who would step up in the secondary with Sandra Still and Josh Wallace gone. After the Arkansas State game, I felt the offensive line needed work as expected. Secondary gave up a handful of chunk plays over the top. Will Johnson got beat, but made it up with that pick 6. So going going from week 1 to week 2, it's like, you know, not going to put all my emotions on one side of the fence. Going to keep my mind open. We'll see how we go. Am I concerned? A little bit. Didn't have the panic button alarm going off yet, but we go into the next week. So Donovan Edwards, bland 2023. Okay, outside of the Natty, carried it over to this year. Loveland, proves he's still him. So part of the most glaring point, or most glaring potential issue at that point after week 1 was that run game, right? Donovan Edwards still blows my mind that Kirk Campbell not once had him in the slot. Not once. Unless he was in the slot at all and was just a blocker, but didn't even use him as a decoy. Nothing. Texas. Pregame. I still had hope for Michigan to pull it off. Preseason, I was on the fence. With Texas losing a few players to injury into this game, I liked Michigan's chances a little bit more. Texas was low on running back depth. Jaden Blue was never really a ball hog. He wasn't really a every down back. He wasn't the first string guy. And so with some of the at the time guys that were out for Texas, I thought, yeah, that bodes well for U of M. Maybe if the run game from Texas is subpar, maybe Michigan can capitalize off that one-dimensional type thing and force Ewers to throw the ball. You like Michigan's pass rush, but Michigan got bailed out on a penalty that nullified a first drive TD from Ewers. Texas missed a field goal, and then it just set up a Michigan offensive drive that went 3-and-out. So first half of that Texas game, you're like, all right, yeah, we're in deep shit. This is going to be a long season. Texas had a 17-point quarter, 17-point second quarter, a 7-point third quarter, while Michigan kicks 2 field goals, scores a late garbage time TD to end the game, 31-12. Sark and company could have poured it on a little bit more, but they coasted instead in the second half. Loveland had, I think, an ill-timed fumble. Running game struggled again with the stacked box, and Michigan sits at 1-1, and the silver lining or the look on the bright side was, hey, it's an out of conference loss. Michigan still can win the Big Ten, right? Arkansas State, Red Wolves scored 15 points in the fourth quarter to keep Michigan on the ropes. Warren tossed those 3 interceptions we alluded to earlier, which ultimately gets him benched for the foreseeable future. A lot of people thought this was the nail in the coffin for his time at QB1. Really thought that was, personally, the last time we were ever going to see number 16 under center in a Michigan uniform, especially with Tuttle emerging out of the depths of whatever ailment he was dealing with at the time, and or Orgy stepping up. Michigan leans on the run 44 times for 300 yards. So you got 3 games of Michigan football. You see the strengths and weaknesses, and you know that Michigan, if they have to play from behind, they're absolutely screwed. They have to play ahead, they have to play close, and if they muddy the waters, it's the same game plan going to be every week. Now, USC. I remember this USC game. I took the wife and kids. We drove like an hour and a half, hour and 15 minutes, whatever, west of where I live to like Hillsdale, Michigan, and we went to a pumpkin patch, vineyards, was it Meckley's orchard or whatever. Thought it was pretty cool. Particularly not a fan of the wine. Wasn't really a fan of the IPAs, the in-house the brewery they had. Really sweet for my liking, but it was still a great time. They had a lot of cool games outside. It was a warm day. for that USC game. Warm day in Southeast Michigan, and had a good time with the family. But anyway, so I was watching this game periodically on my phone, peeking down at it. But USC at the time was number 11th in the country. Michigan leaned heavy on the run again, now with the new starting quarterback, Alex Orji. Miller Moss throws a pick six to Will Johnson. Khalil Mullings rips off a 63-yard run, which he followed up with a few plays later on a 4th and goal for the game-winning touchdown. Now, at this point, Michigan is what it is, right? Still a great defense, but downgraded without complementary football from the offense. They're out there a lot. QB is a huge weakness, and Donovan Edwards is seemingly ineffective on the ground despite the TD in the USC game. With the passing game so porous, it still baffles me still, that Dono's lack of usage in the slaughter passing game. It's basically non-existent. So this one, I think, was this. He catch a Donovan Edwards caught that like 3-yard pass from Alex Orji. Let's see here. Donovan Edwards. Actually, no, this wasn't how this was. He caught one pass for 9 yards though. But Edwards, so Edwards had one on the ground. Mullings had 2, 17 for 159. So Mullings definitely carried this game. Second half, late part of this contest, I was driving home from Meckley's and I was listening to it, and this one wasn't like, okay, we're back, baby, but definitely it was a good win, even with USC finishing out the year, not with the level of hype they had at this point in time, but it was still like a quality win. USC definitely learned in this one of what Big Ten football is going to bring them. Hard nose in the trenches. That pretty boy stuff can work sometimes, but 9 out of 10, if you're going to get blown off the ball like that, you're going to be in trouble. Now, I wrote down here that I was going to try to speed it up here through these next session games, but we'll see how we do. Okay, this is where basically, oh, get out of here. This is basically where Will Johnson medically retires. Okay. Minnesota absolutely handled in the 3 quarters. 21-point fourth makes it a 3-point game, and Michigan holds them off thanks to a questionable offsides penalty during an onside kick. Now, Minnesota, you put in that same level of like with Indiana, Illinois, even maybe Northwestern, where they give Michigan a run. Let's see here. Come on. I want to pull this up real quick. Pull up with the browser here. I'll turn the camera off. So look at this. I mean, let's revisit this real quick. Come on.
Again, this is it. Nice bounce. Scrambled around. Minnesota's got it. The Gophers have it. They've got it. But a flag on the play. Again, this is it.
So there's a play, but we know that was bullcrap, right? So Michigan dodges a bullet there. And when I say that Minnesota's in that tier, you go back to 2015. Minnesota's knocking on the door. They're on the goal line at Jim Harbaugh's first year in Minneapolis. And they essentially bleed almost 20 seconds of game clock off because they're audibling at the line of scrimmage. Michigan goal line stands, saves the trophy game there. So anyways, sorry it took a minute for that to pop up. But not much you can do to dwell on this one. But could easily been a loss there. Michigan get home. I'm gonna say home cooking from the refs, but poorest call. And 21 points in the fourth quarter is just absolutely absurd. And this is when you looked at Wink Martindale and you're like, what are you doing? Okay, we're midway through the season. How can you let Max Brosmer and the Golden Gophers come crawling back into this one? It was a fugly win. The weather was terrible. The game there where I could have gone, I had tickets. If all I had to do was make a phone call, wasn't happening. Glad I didn't go, but I'm absolutely miserable. And with that going into Washington, you know, it's a road game, and you don't feel right about it. Preseason, some people were calling this a loss, anyways, saying that Michigan was going to lose a game that they shouldn't. Washington is not going to be Washington of 2023, but they're going to be good enough to give Michigan problems. And even when people were giving credit to Michigan's defense and a little bit more favorability on the offense, it didn't matter. Like they thought that this was going to be a trap game. I thought Michigan was going to go in there and win this close. I didn't think this was really a losable game. I thought this was highlighted in red. You got to win it. Down 14-10 at halftime. Alex Orji completes 3 passes for 15 yards. Looks absolutely horrendous. Edwards actually outgains Mullings on the ground. Tuttle again comes in, or not again, but he comes in late to give that spark, as I mentioned, puts Michigan right in the game, turns it over late. Michigan defense can't get off the field, and they lose. Washington fans embarrassingly rush the field. So right when you got Jack Tuttle giving that spark, Washington is rolling out their quarterback that's mobile, bringing them out, putting in their everyday guy in, and mixing and matching. Cade McNamara, J.J. McCarthy style. Michigan, at that point, their defense just could not get off the field. And Michigan is sitting at a point where you got 2 losses, 1 conference, 1 non-conference, right? You're at a point now where like you can't lose anymore. If you want to get to Indy, you can't lose anymore. Oregon is already going to be a monumental test. You look over and you see Illinois on the horizon. They're playing decent ball. You got to go to their field. Michigan State. I mean, you feel pretty good about still winning that one at home. Indiana is lighting up the scoreboard. So you see on the horizon the future matchups, and you're trying to pick and choose. Like, man, is Illinois a winnable game? I mean, you're looking at Northwestern maybe almost a for surefire win. Outside of that, everything's up in the air. Now, Michigan heads into the bye week before its road game in Champaign versus 22 ranked Illinois. Illinois almost runs for 200 on Michigan in this one, and the Wolverines only get 7 points the entire game. An absolute abysmal and pathetic offensive output. Michigan had several chances to come into this one, or to come out of this one with a win, but 3 fumbles, 2 lost, 1 by Tuttle, 1 by Edwards, and a red zone pick by Tuttle cost them dearly. Being at that game, we talked about it in that post-game episode. Lovely town, right? Champaign is a great town. I don't even remember the pizza joint's name. You'll have to go back and listen to that episode if you want to get the deets on it. But some of the best pizza I've ever had. Great atmosphere. And it's a town where the home fans aren't going to really, if you're a Michigan fan, they're really not going to give you much problem. Of course, there was a little extra emphasis of cheering in my eardrum, when it's out of reach and when you're climbing out of the concourse to head home. But it was a great time. absolutely great time. But watching it unfold was very frustrating. Especially seeing Donovan Edwards cough up that fumble. It's your senior there. It's not what you want. Loveland being such a matchup problem for almost any team, for him to not get even more targets is is very disappointing. 7 catches for 83 yards is nice, but a team like Illinois, I mean, you should be hyper targeting him like Derek Carr did with Darren Waller in Las Vegas. So, Michigan State, 2-game skid ends here, okay, with an upset dub over Michigan or MSU. Spartans most likely was the better team in this one, but Michigan made the timely plays to pull it off. So, Washington game, right? Tuttle comes in, ends the orgy experiment to start. Illinois ends the Tuttle experiment to start. We're back with Davis Warren. Davis Warren appears in this game, and Michigan cannot run the ball. Mullings, Rodano. MSU dialed up the stack box. Michigan cannot lean on that. Let's see here real quick. Let's pull up the per game stats. So Alex Orji had 6 for 64. He had a 30-yarder, basically to, I want to say nail in the coffin, but really to propel Michigan in the victory column. Donovan Edwards 9 for 24. It was 2.7 per carry. Mullings 13 for 18. So right there, 31 carries, 119 yards, 3.8. This is not going to get it done. So Orji comes up huge in this one, but with his legs, Warren and Edwards both throw a touchdown pass. Edwards throws it to Loveland. Warren throws it to Loveland. But yes, 30-yard run late with Orji, huge. Loveland scores twice. And, of course, the aftermath post-game wasn't the worst we've seen from this rivalry in recent memory, but it definitely was. It definitely did not need to happen. And if you go back to that episode, post-game, I went viral. I think we went right. Was it right after that episode? We put an episode out. Went viral on Twitter because I recorded the aftermath, and at first glance, I asked the Twitter sphere, which I knew what I was going to get into, but I asked the Twitterverse if Clint Mullings was stomping on a Michigan player or staff member, or did it look like it? It had a 6 foot to 8 foot circle or a hole in the body of in the pile of people there that almost like a mosh pit, So first glance, very peculiar, I was very curious on what was going on. And of course MSU fans took my video and ran with it, which was not my intention. Michigan fans assumed that I was an MSU Sparty, calling me names, saying all these things, but I just posed the question. And after watching it about 15 times, and some people said it was obvious to them, it wasn't obvious to me initially, was that no, Mullings was not curb stomping anybody. Turns out he was actually labeled as the peacekeeper. Now, video looks a little different, but it's very hard to tell if you're not there. So we merely speculate from the above view camera. And Colson Loveland had little brother comments afterwards. Of course, that pissed off Michigan State fans, but again, he went 3-0 versus you. I should have every right to talk a smack. And upon further video footage, it was MSU that kind of ignited this issue when the player lined up across from Loveland on the kneel down to end the game, kind of headbutted him, gave him a shove, and then one thing led to another, a lot of bad blood. And for the most part this offseason, there wasn't a lot of, outside a few comments between some boob Spartan people online in Michigan. The rivalry seemingly was at a peace. We were in peacetime, and all it took was a couple words and a couple actions, and the rivalry is still at a boiling point. So that's enough about Spartans, and then the Paul Bunyan Trophy. Michigan won 24-17, and at this point in time, Michigan is 5-3, 3-2 in the conference. That made MSU 4-4 and 2-3 in the conference. Aiden Childs, I've been not a huge fan of per se, but definitely one who's been impressed with his play, and I think could be dangerous to opposing teams in the future. But at this point, you ended the 2-game skid. You got Indiana and Oregon up next, who've just offensively lighten up the scoreboard. Oregon, number 1 in the country. And it's not if can Michigan beat Oregon, it's how badly, how much can they make it, look fugly for the Ducks. Let's see here. So Oregon and the game itself just simply outclassed. No answer to stop them defensively or the offense to keep up. So, right, it was very obvious after week 3, week 4 that Michigan has to be tied or in the lead to have any success, and short fields. They do not have the offense to keep up. So there's not much really to say there. Oregon whooped their ass. Indiana, their last loss of the season for Michigan. Michigan is down 17-3 at half. Michigan kicks a couple field goals and a touchdown with a failed 2-pointer. Unable to score a go-ahead touchdown with 2 minutes to go. The game is where you knew the Hoosiers weren't necessarily frauds, but definitely not as prolific as advertised. So Michigan did muddy the waters here. Played a little bit better defense. Made the adjustments in the second half, but the offense again just too much of a hole to climb out of. And this was where you could see that Curtis Rourke's eyes were flummoxed. That was definitely the worst output for the Hoosier offense. Only getting 3 points in that second half, and that was in the fourth quarter. So watching that one, you could tell that when Curtis Rourke got knocked around a few times, that, man, Indiana, when they actually have to play, a team like Ohio State who's balanced on both sides of the ball, they're going to get blown out. And when they had to play when they had to play Notre Dame, I knew Notre Dame was going to kill them as well. They had a soft schedule. I would say they're good, but if an Indiana team is going to play your ordinary Michigan team from year in, year out, they're not winning that one. So Curt Cignetti, ran his mouth all season, and at the end of it, he definitely was shut up. So we move on to Northwestern. Best offensive output all season against the Wildcats. They dropped a 50-burger on them. Mulling scores 3 times. A wide receiver had 7 catches, and the defense gets 2 picks and 6 sacks. So statistically, the best game of the year for the Wolverines. Warren threw an interception, but 26 of 35, pretty decent, 195 through the air. But yeah, Tyler Morris, 7 catches for 64 yards, and he is now going to be an Indiana Hoosier. So best of luck to him, as long as he's not playing against Michigan. But better output, and Northwestern at that point in time goes to 2-6 in the conference, 4-7 overall. Michigan is at 6-5 and 4-4 in Big Ten play, and now they are eligible for a bowl game. Now we get into the final regular season game, which technically was Michigan's bowl game. The last chance for these pro NFL bound guys to put a lasting impact on their Michigan legacy and their rivalry legacy. Now, what else can be said here, though, really? But we get to it anyways. Michigan can only, win with a short field, as I stated in the game preview, and they had to muck it up, right? This is the running theme for the whole season. In the end, Ryan Day and Chip Kelly aided in that, being a little bullheaded, but at the end of it all, what an absolute classic. Well, in the sense of the rivalry lore, but this was a complete team and program win. Before the bowl game was announced, like I said, this was Michigan's postseason, or post regular season. Michigan players and staff might have a win over the national champions, eventual national champions. Like I said, Ohio State, Notre Dame played tonight, but Michigan had to have a short field. In the preview, I compared this game in a sense to 2016. Now, 2016, Michigan is going to destroy 2024 Michigan, but Michigan was in that game 99.9% of the way and lost in overtime to Ohio State. Wilton Speight shot his team and himself in the foot twice, throwing a pick six and then another interception to boot. But they capitalized for the most part off the short field, and Michigan did just that in this one. Will Howard throws 2 interceptions. Amir Hall, probably could say that in the Northwestern game it started, when Michigan's defense and Wink Martindale kind of found their footing. But even in the Indiana, I think Amir Hall really started to take off at this point in the season, and really started to lock down that side. And we look at this Ohio State game and we're like, man, they didn't really air it out to Jeremiah Smith a whole lot. But I mean, if you have the template to beat Ohio State, Michigan used it, and it's shocking that with my eyes, with my lens, nobody else who faced Ohio State after this game, it seemingly didn't watch the film. But the conclusion of this with the whole flag planting, we talked about that in the post game as well. But I still don't think that flag planting is that big of an issue. It's not poor sportsmanship. It wasn't poor sportsmanship in 2022. It wasn't in 2024. I think that if you don't want it to happen on the field, do it during the game. But Michigan walks away 4 wins in a row on the Buckeyes. 2025 comes back to Ann Arbor, and we have a rivalry that's honestly the best it's ever been in my lifetime, for sure. I think that we're poised for some popcorn and fireworks because Tavian St. Clair is going to be starting for Ohio State in the near future. You got Bryce Underwood coming in. A lot of talent in both programs. Aaron Nolan transfers out of Ohio State, so it will be, be very curious who they choose to be their second caller next year. Let's take a break here, and when we come back, we'll hit Bama, and we'll jet out of here. What's up, Southeast Michigan Podcast? When our community wins with us, we want to ensure you've maximized your ROI. Line shopping for the best odds matters, and that is why any profitable sports bettor needs to be using multiple sports books. Thankfully, there has never been a better time to get signed up, and we are here to connect you with the best promotions industry-wide. Using our link, signupexpert.com/southeast, you can get access to all sports books in your region, along with a review of each platform and its unique features. Most importantly, this page automatically connects you to the top promotions at each book, allowing you to start line shopping with an enhanced bankroll. If you want to take advantage of these benefits, like Fanatic Sportsbook right now, bet and get up to $1,000 in bonus bets, then please consider signing up for the next book at signupexpert.com/southeast. All right, let's get back for our final segment here. We're going to wrap this bad boy up. Alabama in the ReliaQuest Bowl, the opt-out bowl. When we previewed this, man, I tell you, it was very difficult to gauge where these teams were at. You knew that Michigan was going to be without Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant, Loveland, and then you had Jalen Milroe playing under center for them. And I was like, man, how can Michigan do it? Obviously, we gave our template. We know what how the best way to do it, but is it going to be remotely happen in terms of execution with the personnel you got? You know, playing a lot of backups, playing guys who are really getting the most reps they've ever gotten. A lot of young guys going at it. But anyways, double-digit underdogs, just like the weeks previous against Ohio State. And I felt like these last, let's say in 2023, right? That latter half of the season, even without Jim Harbaugh, my gut feeling was like, I just don't see Michigan losing. There's just no way that they're going to lose. Ohio State, I just don't see them losing. The Natty, I laid the wood on that Natty because I knew that they were going to win. They were going to win somehow. Just I couldn't find a way for Michigan or see Michigan losing that game. And with this Ohio State game, it was pretty close to that. And with this Bama game, despite all what I said about the unknowns, player-wise, personnel-wise, in the pit of my gut, man, was like, they're going to win this game. I don't know how. I don't know who's going to play, but there's something about this one where I'm not confident, or I wouldn't be confident as a Bama fan. So both sides had no idea who was going to line up across from them, right? Opt-outs, injuries, double point digit underdog, okay? Mucking it up, playing short field, move the needle in their favor. Weather in that first half caused absolute mayhem for Kevin DeBoer. Michigan wasn't able to put touchdowns on those early drives, but man, Dominic Zavada, kick after kick. Michigan has been blessed for these last 5 or so years with phenomenal kickers. Bama came to life a bit, and as the sun appeared in the third quarter, but Michigan prevailed. I was hoping to see Jane Davis in this one. I really thought that at some point, if like Davis Warren wasn't moving the sticks, we were going to see number two. When Warren did get knocked out late in this game, he ended up tearing his ACL. I thought, Jane Davis was going to get right in there. He was warming up on the sideline, like he was about to put the chin strap down and get out there. But Alex Sorgi closed it out best he could. I think that was a decision solely on just game experience and just playing not to lose, which is a risk, but it was also would have been a risk to put out Jane Davis with no game experience. And the Michigan defense once again stood firm in the red zone versus Jalen Milroe. But the football gods made it rain in that first quarter, and Michigan took full advantage. I remember when we watched that game together. We spent 40 minutes. That was a long first quarter. So at the end of the day, It wasn't a season Michigan or its fans wanted, but the bright side, and I think really the only way you can look at it is, you know, wins all over the rivals: Minnesota, Michigan State, Ohio State, and if you consider Northwestern one with the Jewett Trophy, and a bowl win, right? That's fantastic. Alabama, goes down under our belts for 2 years in a row, or 2 seasons in a row. Even if OSU wins the Natty, having that senior class go 0 for 4 versus Michigan will leave a sour taste in the mouth for years to come. Jack Sawyer's still not over that. He played his ass off in that Michigan Ohio State game. He got bullied a little bit by Max Bredesen, right? But he had an interception, and that scoop and score he had in the semifinals, that is going to go down in history for Ohio State lore. But 0-4 versus the Wolverines, and even the fans will look back at the season and be like, "Damn, we still lost to Michigan." At the end of the day, though, the Natty is the ultimate prize. And someone asked me at the bar yesterday, actually, like, would you, if you could see the future, would you want, or if you had to choose a Natty or Ohio State rivalry win every year, what would you do? If you were to lose Ohio State, you were guaranteed a Natty. I would, at this point in time, I would take the Ohio State win and lose a Natty 99 out of 100. And I answered that last night with a spin this way. It depends on the state of the rivalry. If Michigan was Ohio State's shoes, or let's just say if Michigan was like 7, 8 wins in a row over Ohio State, and then I would be like, yeah, you lose Ohio State, win the Natty. With Michigan coming out of the depths it was in recently, and then they're beating Ohio State consistently, I would say that I'm right now 4 wins in a row. I want to make it 5 and 6. Get to the Natty and lose, I'm okay with it, but you're beating Ohio State. A lot of that satisfaction comes with watching the Buckeye fan base meltdown. And that's what it really comes down to. The bowl games, not in the playoffs, are mere preseason ball games now, right? So that Bama game, 10, 15 years ago, have a little bit more prestige to it, a little more exclamation point, more of a thumbprint, if you will. So you cannot hold these coaches hold these coaches non-playoff bowl records with too much weight anymore. But you get in and get out with a dub. Having said that, you still want to win for your players. You still want as much momentum as possible going into the offseason. So Ohio State, Bama, the number 1 recruit, top 10 recruiting class, and a group of transporter guys, really very highly touted, worth noting coming in. Program is on the up. It's a unique way to follow up a national championship. Don't want to experience it really, I guess, the way we did again, but that might be a little contradictory to what I just said about Ohio State, but I wanted to see the team do better than 8-5. So here we are. I mean, this is pretty much going to wrap up the 2024 talk, but if you had to pick a subpar or above average season, I don't think you get better than this. So, having said that, let's turn the page. Let's get into 2025. Bryce Underwood, number 19, in Schembechler Hall, getting that film study, working, doing his thing. They're getting in the talent. Portal's on, kind of on an upswing, in my opinion, but I'm excited to see what's going to happen. Wink Martindale apparently is interviewing for NFL DC jobs. Not something you want to see. Isaiah Hull on Locked On thinks that Wink Martindale is probably going to stay, but Michigan needs some continuity. They need some consistency at their coordinator positions, even with the OCs. I mean, from Josh Gaddis in 21, bouncing to Matt Weiss to Kurt Campbell to Sherrone Moore. It just at some point we need like 3-4 years of stability, and that's what my biggest thing was in the preseason with Greg Scruggs and John Robinson. It's like, can we just stay out of trouble? You're the coaches, you're the leaders, you're the role models. Let's pay our assistants and let's just keep our foundation going. Wink Martindale, I questioned his job in the beginning portion of the season, and he proved to me as time went on that he's good enough to work with to have stay, as if that means stability. You don't want at this point in the game to lose him and then have to find another DC. You're at the crux of this recruiting cycle coming into close, or the climax, that is, and I want to get into spring ball knowing that we got our OC, Chip Lindsey, we got our DC, Wink Martindale, and we can progress forward. And that my only problem with Chip Lindsey, looking at his resume, is that dude does not stay around for long either. 1 and done, 2 and done. If you get him for 3 years, it'll be an anomaly. So let's just not lose recruits over it. Let's keep our familiar faces and move forward. Get ready for 2025. Get to the college football playoff. Beat Ohio State again. Get to Indy, blah, blah, all the good things. So the transfer portal, let's pull that up real quick before we jet out of here. Some guys came into Michigan that it slipped by me. It didn't make my Twitter feed, so I didn't know. So we had Lawrence Attar, offensive guard from Ferris State, rated a 3-star. That was someone who kind of slid underneath. Caleb Anderson, a redshirt junior corner from Louisiana. That's just Louisiana, right? The Raging Cajuns. I would assume he's coming over because he's got familiarity with Lamar Morgan. You got Anthony Simpson. He's a 3-star wide receiver from UMass. You got Trent Middleton. He's a long snapper from UCLA. And that was in a matter of, it doesn't give me the dates here, but it was a matter of like a week. All that happened. With Michigan, let's see here. With Michigan, they lost Owen Waffle, 3-star defensive lineman. That was someone who I really thought when they brought him in was going to be kind of under the radar, dark horse to be someone that could really make a name for himself. But he's from New Jersey, so he's headed kind of back home. He's going to Penn State. Senior Jeff Percy entered the portal. He was a 4-star recruit, 3-star transfer. That was someone who kind of a plug-and-play guy, not really a starter, not really a backup. So depth-wise, it sucks to see him go. Alex Orji is going to be a UNLV Rebel. Breon Ishmael, our 3-star edge guy, he's going to Purdue. Cody Jones, junior cornerback, he's going to Memphis. And as we mentioned earlier in the episode, Tyler Morris is going to be Indiana Hoosier. Cole Cabana, took a couple trips to places, but he's going to be at Western Michigan. He was going to be at Wisconsin, and someone said Central Michigan, but now he's at Western. Tavier Dunlap's not going too far. He's at Eastern. Might have mentioned that in a previous episode. Miles Pollard, the cornerback, who's got a last name Pollard, he's going to Memphis because who was it? Miles Pollard is in the portal as well. So anyways, those are really some of the more notable guys that are leaving that we haven't expounded on. All right, so that's it. Run-on sentence there to finish it off. But thank you for tuning in for another episode 79. Like I said, we are now into college basketball and hockey season. We'll be back next week to check in on those boys. They got some big games coming up. Michigan hockey's got Penn State on the way, I believe, or is it Notre Dame? And then Michigan hoops has got Purdue. They're going to be at Purdue on the road here, which the Boilermakers were ranked 11th. So that's going to be probably Michigan's toughest task on the season so far. So, anyways, go Blue. Thank you guys for coming in and hanging out for a little bit. All right. I'll talk to you guys later. Deuces.